Okay, so since Twilight has been all over my For You page over the last week, I have to bring this up because we need to talk about this. Because this has been something that's been on my mind since a long time, and I need to bring it up because nobody ever brings it up. Well, certain people do, but not enough of y'all, and I need to bring it up. So let's talk about it. And this is coming from somebody who is black and also indigenous. So let's talk about this because this is important. Stephanie Myers, come to the front of the room. Come to the front of the congregation right now because we need to talk about a certain Native American tribe, a certain indigenous character, a certain indigenous characters, and how they were treated in this story. Okay, let's bring this up. Let's bring this up. First of all, I have a bone to pick with the Twilight fandom in general and how they treat Jacob Black. Because y'all don't respect my man, okay? And yes, he was problematic as well. Because I think Edward is one of the most problematic characters in Twilight. I do. I mean, there are others, but, he's pretty problematic. And that's why, ever since I read the books, well, listen to them on tape because I have dyslexia. But ever since I listened to these books and watched these films, I was like, oh no. Because when I first saw Twilight, I was like, oh, Edward, I get it. Edward's the vampire and he saw this and that. And then I listened to the whole entire story and I was like, oh no, Edward is actually a D-bag. And I don't like him. No, no, no. No, no, no. Okay? We do not support Edward in this house. And then you have Jacob. Now, yes, I'm biased. But at the end of the day, the things that Jacob did were because of circumstances. Because if you were a 16-year-old indigenous boy who fell in love with this white girl, which that's a whole nother story, and then fell in love with this white girl who didn't even really like you, said she likes you, liked you being around, probably did have feelings for you, but then chose the colonizer, the same colonizer who basically ruined your life because they came into town knowing damn well that they were the colonizers who ruined your tribe's lives because they came in, they knew they were vampires, and they knew that by coming in and being around them that they were going to turn them and make them into werewolves that they didn't want to be, and basically ruin these poor, innocent, young, Quileute native kids' lives, right? They don't want to be werewolves. And now they're forced to be werewolves because you and your stupid colonizer family, whole Confederates in your family, whole Confederate soldier and his Confederate wife in your family, literally come to town with your colonizer-ass mindset, and you come as your little vampire-ass, I have so much money, little selves, and just by you being there, you turn all these boys and Leah into werewolves. And that's not fair because none of them really want to be werewolves. No. And then the girl that this poor young indigenous kid likes a lot, is in love with, chooses the colonizer, right? And so then he has to go through depression just for, in the end, him to not even end up with an indigenous girl, which I wish that could have happened. If Bella said no and it just happened that way, he could have just ended up with an indigenous girl. But no. You know what you did, Stephanie Meyer? You put him with a child. You put him with a child. And you know what? That is wrong. That is wrong. And you know you're wrong. And plus, nobody likes Renesmee because that's a dumb name. Reconnaissance, okay? Rhombus, okay? We don't even like her. But the point is that just to satisfy you, you decide to put the poor indigenous kid with the colonizer and his wife who you fell in love with, the little white girl. You decided to make him fall in love with their infant daughter. Absolute trash. Absolute trash, Stephanie Meyer. And you know you're trash for that. You know you're trash for that. Because, what? It's wild. And then you have an entire fandom of girls and women and just people who love these stories who be out here acting like Jacob is this trash character. And I'm like, okay, he did some things that were trash. And I will call him out on that because that's not cool. But at the end of the day, he did those things because he was in love. And he also did those things because he was under an immense amount of pressure, because he was having to do all of these things because these colonizers, these vampire colonizers, were in town, ruining his entire life. Ruining his entire life. Making him do things he didn't want to do. Turning into werewolves and just all of that craziness, right? And then it's like, blame Jacob for all of it. No. No, Edward needs to take a lot of responsibility for his actions all the time, because you, Edward, might be 17 in theory, but Jacob Black is an actual 16-year-old, and all of his life got ruined and all of everything because of the actions of you and your family. And it's not okay, and I just don't like it. And I don't like the fact that the fandom tries to act like Jacob is the problem. Yes, Jacob did some silly 16-year-old kid teenage stuff, but let's not act like he didn't do it because of circumstances, okay? And I'm not standing up for the things that he did, but I'm also saying it was circumstances, bro, okay? All right? So let's be honest and let's be true, okay? I don't like how she portrayed the poor, innocent, indigenous characters. I didn't like it. I didn't like it. Now, taking away from the book, let's go into real life then. Okay? The way that the Quileute tribe, which is an actually real tribe out in the Pacific Northwest, the Quileute tribe, right? They deserve better, because Stephanie just took their stories, which she didn't even get the stories right. And they've told her multiple times that the stories that you took from their tribe are not even real. Yes, they are connected to the wolf, but not in the way that you put it out there, okay? And then, to this day, the Quileute don't even make money off of these stories. Now, yeah, it's okay, because some they make a little tiny bit of money when the tourists come over there, I guess. But it's still messed up. Like, they should have made more money off of these stories if they were going to talk about their tribe. You know? So, as a former twihard who was in love with these stories back in the day, I get it. But Stephanie, be serious, okay? Because you need to fix a lot of your things. And if you plan to make new stories, if you plan to make a story based on Jacob and Renesmee, or even like continue this remaking these stories through the cartoons or whatever's supposed to come out soon, fix it. Because I don't want to have to continue to see indigenous people made a mockery of on my screen anymore. Okay? Now, in theory, I will always be Team Jacob because, he's the only brown character in this entire story, okay? The Quileutes, I have to stand, because it's, what else do I have? It's so funny, too, because I remember I was watching the Twilight movies with my brother-in-law one time, and we were watching them, and he goes, so there are no black people in this story? And I'm like, no. He was like, interesting. I was like, I know, what do you want? But like, yeah, Stephanie, you need to fix the Twilight stories exponentially, ASAP, if you ever want to do any more media around them. Because I'm not going to sit here and watch you degrade these poor indigenous people. Like, just don't do it ever again. Plus, me and my mom have this theory that Stephanie Myers is actually a witch. And that's the only reason that Twilight got big. Because if you're really being serious, the story's not that great. And coming from a former Twihard who was obsessed, I'm talking obsessed with Twilight back in the day, I can say these things. So, yeah. But like, fix the story of the indigenous characters, please. And don't ever write another story where an indigenous character has to fall in love with an infant ever again. What in the bullcrap? Be serious. You made a mockery of that entire tribe, and I don't appreciate it. I don't. Justice for Jacob Black, and I don't care what anybody says. I don't. Okay? I really, really don't. Justice for the Quileutes. Justice for Jacob Black. Period. Period.